Hello and welcome. I am the Armchair Audiophile, back after a brief health-related hiatus, and today we're going to be talking about the TFZ T2 Galaxy. Now, this IEM utilizes a 12mm graphene driver with a dual magnetic circuit and crossover. There's not a whole lot more to say about it. This is my first TFZ IEM, despite the fact that they've been around for quite a while, so I'm curious to see how they perform. Let's go ahead and get into the box here. Okay. Remove the plastic. Remove the cover. Incidentally, this box looks almost identical to the Blonde BL03 box, although the companies are not related. Alright. We have the IEMs themselves. I would have liked to see some sort of retention, but they appear to just be held in by their ear tips. Okay. Set that aside. They've got little plastic covers on the metal faceplates, which is a nice touch. I've never seen that before. Now let's take a look at the shells. Appears to be a standard ABS plastic inner shell with a CNC metal outer shell. Nice gold Torx screw. They are not identical. They have different logos on each side. Let's go ahead and look at the accessories. Okay, spare ear tips, a small carrying pouch made out of, frankly, one of the garbagiest pleathers I've ever felt, but what can you expect? And an instruction booklet. Set all of that aside. It appears that the cable is inside the back of the container for the IEMs themselves. Cable looks decent. Getting up close, the weave looks nice and tight. The connector sports the TFZ logo, and there are soft rubber ear guides leading into the 2-pin 0.78mm connectors. While I'm getting them onto the connectors, I forgot to mention that these are $59. I've got them on the cable now, and I have to say that the connectors went on with a really reassuring tight fit, and the sockets themselves aren't moving around at all. The connector itself is protruding slightly, and the cable end has a slight recess, allowing them to mate and be held together by more than just the pins, which is also really nice to see. I'm going to keep this brief, and the next step is just to go ahead and check out sound. I've got the High BR5 here on deck for impressions. I'm going to go ahead and get these in my ears. Notably, I didn't get any driver flex on insertion. Okay, now here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start with Purity Ring's Fineshrine off of their first album. I've been on a little bit of a Witch House kick lately, so we're going to start there. This track really covers a pretty broad range of what I'm looking for. There is a lot of high frequencies going on. There's a lot of bass going on. There's a nice ethereal female vocal going on. So, lots of trappy percussion, fast attack. It's going to be able to test decay. Overall, a really broad spectrum testing track. So let's see how it goes. First thing I'm noticing is that these are definitely bass elevated. Soundstage isn't massive. Bass is really punchy. Channel separation is good. I think they're a little bit rolled off in the highs. This track usually sounds airier than this. Vocals aren't anything to write home about on this track, but they're not recessed particularly or offensive in any way. The dominant characteristic of these is bass punch and quantity, which is reminiscent of what people said about the TFZ number 3. I'm going to take back what I just said about the vocals not being recessed. Listening a little bit more closely, the vocals are definitely set back a little bit versus the treble, and definitely set back a little bit versus the bass here. So far, they're sounding, like a pretty standard V-shaped signature, and it's a little premature to say, but I think I'm sensing a Basshead IEM here. Let's move on to the next track. For this, we're going to do Wayo by Riot Jazz Brass Band. I like to test how horns sound on a new headphone. Horns, it can really easily come off shouty or thin. As you saw on the KZZSX review, the tuba from this band really sounded like it was splitting across drivers. Obviously, this is a single driver IEM, so I'm not expecting that issue, but I'm definitely looking for naturalness of tonality. So, the trumpets and saxophone sounds good. The tuba does sound a little bit bloated. I think that's coming from the bass elevation. That being said, the drum kit does sound extremely natural, particularly cymbals. I'm really impressed with how cymbals are sounding on this track, but I'm definitely feeling that treble roll off. There's not a hi-hat, but someone is clearly, the drummer is tapping the larger cymbal, and that's definitely rolled off versus how they sound on, say, the Periodic Audio Beryllium, or certainly the Shure tapes. Again, the soundstage is really just average, maybe even a little below average. What's sticking out the most on this track is the naturalness of the drum kit to me. The attack isn't razor sharp like it is on the Tin P1 or the Shure tape. Decay isn't mind-blowingly quick, but that slight lag to it adds, I think, to the sense of naturalness to the drum kit. Okay, let's keep it pushing. I'm going to change the vibe up real hard right now. We're going to listen to America by Simon and Garfunkel. I'm going to be looking for male vocals, guitar performance. That's really it on this track. So, vocals are still definitely recessed in a standard V-shaped signature, but they are nice and smooth, sweet, natural. No complaints in the tonality, but they aren't quite as forward as I would prefer. The one advantage of the rolled off treble is that the pipe organ in this track is really, really high and could easily get fatiguing on a bright headphone, and this is definitely not that. If you are sensitive to treble, then these are a really good pick for you because I have yet to hear anything approaching fatiguing. Guitar also sounds very natural. I think this is, a function of not having a razor sharp attack and decay. Although I tend to prefer that, this is a very natural sounding IEM in terms of the percussion, the guitars, the vocals, despite having the vocals step back a little bit. And I want to reiterate the sweetness of the vocals on this track. Really, the texture to the vocals is excellent, actually. Same with the guitars. As much as I sound to be lukewarm on these, I'm having trouble moving on from this track, so I think I'm going to let it ride all the way through because I am having a nice time with them. Not my preferred signature, but good enough that I don't want to skip this. Okay, moving on, I'm going to get back on track here with sort of a contemporary pop song. I've got Heartless by The Weeknd. Obviously, there's a really bassy track, a lot of atmospheric effects going on, so it's going to be interesting to see how they present. As I expected, the bass is just massive bass impact. And not getting loose either, not getting loose. They bleed a little bit into the lower mids, but they are not loose. I haven't reviewed the Blonde BL03, but I didn't really care for them because I felt like the mid bass was bleeding far too much into the mid range, but these, for a bass emphasized AEM, are doing a good job of keeping them to themselves. Again, soundstage isn't really impressing me. On other sets, the atmospheric effect of this song sounds a lot larger, but the vocals, where the vocals were recessed on the other three tracks, the vocals in this track are right where I'd like them to be. Texture, again, sweet, very natural, so no complaints there. But yeah, these have an absolute crap ton of bass, and I think I said this about the ZSX, but again, this is tuned kind of how I listen to music in my car, with the bass all the way up, or I guess all the way up on camera. They're definitely really bass-favored IEMs. For what it's worth, channel separation is excellent, but overall, so far, this is the best sounding track on these, and I suspect that these are going to be really good for pop, hip-hop, R&B, that kind of stuff. Percussion is fine. As I said before, not stunning attack and decay, but not smearing or anything, you know. I think I may be a bit spoiled coming off of the Shure tapes with their lightsaber-esque attack and decay. But moving right along, as I apparently finished that track, I'm going to do Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. I know it's a very sort of stereotypical track, very trite, kind of played out, but I wanted to see how they sounded for something rockier and heavier. So on this track, the cymbals in the intro sound a little dry for me, but the bass guitar sounds fantastic. As in the other tracks, drum kit sounds incredibly natural, as do the guitars. Alright, I really don't have a whole lot more to say about this track. Again, the vocals step back just a little bit. Well, more than just a little bit. They're a really classic V shape in the mids and highs with significantly elevated mid and sub bass. So let's go ahead and take these off and sort of sum things up. The TFZ T2 Galaxy. What I'm hearing is a very standard V, slightly rolled off in the real upper treble, stepped back in the mids, a little bit recessed. Vocals definitely stepped back, but very natural. Bass is out of control, just wild. Not boomy, not bleedy, but significantly elevated over neutral. And if that's your type of thing, these are a winner. They're not so much for me, I don't think. I prefer something closer to neutral. I prefer more treble than this, certainly extension. I prefer less bass elevation. But I have to say, listening to The Weeknd, good lord, these are super fun, if a little bit dark overall. So with that, I'd like to invite you back to the channel sometime soon, and we have a Patreon now. If you'd like to support the channel and you enjoy the content, we've got 3 tiers. We've got a private Discord server where I'll be active, going to be really involved with that. I'm hoping to get a few people in there and start building a community out, but otherwise, that's it for me, the Armchair Audiophile, reminding you that life is too short for bad headphones.